All right, let's get into the life of Christ. This is a book that Bishop Sheen wrote many years ago. And I know different popes have talked about reading his book. I know John Paul II said that it was one of his favorite books of Fulton Sheen. And we talked a little bit about the child in the temple, but let's talk what happens in one of the mysteries of the Rosary when we talk about the finding of the child Jesus in the temple, what was really going on. So I'm going to read, and then Father Murr can give us some commentary. Bishop Sheen said, after fulfilling the rites, men and women left in separate caravans to meet again at night. But the boy Jesus, unknown to his parents, stayed behind in Jerusalem. They, thinking that he was among their traveling companions, had gone a day's journey before they missed him. It was thus that Jesus was lost for 3 days. All through his infancy, there was talk of contradiction, swords, no room, exile, slaughter, and now there was loss. That's true. In those 3 days, Mary came to know one of the effects of sin, namely the loss of God, though she was without sin. Nevertheless, she knew the fears and the loneliness and the darkness and the isolation which every sinner experiences when he loses God. It was a kind of glorified hide and seek. Okay, he was hers, and that was why she sought him. He was on the business of redemption, and that was why he left her and went to the temple. She had her dark night of the body in Egypt. She would now have her dark night of the soul in Jerusalem. Boy, what a beautiful thought. Mothers must be trained to bear crosses. Oh, yeah. Now only her body, but also her soul would have to pay dearly for the privilege of being his mother. She would later suffer another 3-day loss of Good Friday to Easter Sunday. This first loss was part of her preparation. Your thoughts, Father Murr?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, how do you beat that?
I know you.
How do you beat that? I mean, what struck me the first time that I read that, and I'm talking about
many years,
50 years ago, maybe. Well, I don't know, whenever it was that I first read it, at least 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I never stopped to consider.
Yeah.
We believe as Christians that the Blessed Mother was conceived without sin. We just had the celebration of the feast day of the Immaculate Conception.
Yes.
And I'm going to do this because every time I say this, I always get the reaction from many people who didn't know this. Mm-hmm. Many people, especially and Catholics, confuse the Immaculate Conception with the virgin birth.
All the time.
I mean, all the time. So they think what they're talking about the Immaculate Conception was that Mary conceived Christ immaculately. That is not. Well, yes, that's true, but that's not what the Immaculate Conception is. It is that Joachim and Anne, the parents of Mary, parents of the Blessed Virgin Mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary, when they had carnal relations, the child conceived, Mary, in the womb of Saint Anne, was conceived without sin.
Amen.
Now, a lot of people say, well, that's unnatural. I said to somebody, unnatural? You think it's unnatural to be conceived without sin? I said, go on the bus. It was bus number 64 when we were talking at an Italian bar, an Italian coffee bar. I said, get on bus number 64 and ask how many people on the bus were conceived in sin. They'll all tell you, not me.
Exactly, Roll.
No, not me, not me. So it comes down to only the Virgin Mary was conceived in sin. Yeah. Is that what you're telling me? Ridiculous. And why was she conceived in sin, without sin? She was conceived without sin. And let me just back up a little bit more to explain this to people who say this is unnatural. This is the way God created Eve. Eve was created without sin. So Mary, who is going to be the new Eve, the new beginning of creation in grace, was also conceived just like Eve without sin. This is our nature before it was fallen. Mm-hmm. So God chose the woman, he created that woman, who with an unfallen nature to re-begin the order of grace. So that Mary could conceive herself and give, knit, just stop and think of this, to knit God together.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
To knit God together.
Incredible.
In her own womb,
Incredible.
which was, and it would be impossible to imagine God being knit together in the womb of a woman conceived in sin.
Of course.
He didn't know sin. So then Sheen says this, that woman that we just explained was conceived without sin, was from the moment of her conception and born all of her life without sin, knew what sin was. How did she come to know what sin was? Well, she came to experience the effect of sin. What is the effect of sin? Loss of God.
Amen.
In other words, she lost her child for 3 days. And in those 3 days of panic, she understood one of the effects of sin. To be without Christ is the effect of sin. Also, that's interesting, very interesting. Christ was lost for how many days? 2 days, 4 days? No, 3 days.
Right.
3 days.
Yep.
Always this 3-day message, because that's going to point to the 3 days in the tomb when he was lost also to the world. The world lost him for 3 days. So this is very beautiful to say, this is how Mary, being without sin, understands us. She understands us because she also lost Christ. She also lost the fount of life for 3 days.
And Father, I'm going to make a connection, unfortunately, to this connection that says we lose God. It seems like our culture has lost God. And what I've noticed statistically, I think I shared this before the show to you about suicide, that it's the 10th most common cause of death. But among young people, 12 to 25, it's the second most common cause of death. And it seems to me that the world we're living in has thrown God out, and the effects of that are very depressing, so much to the point where people are taking their lives. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Terry, there's another saying that's very popular today among young people and not so young people. When you hear something like that, that's statistically shocking.
Yeah.
And I do this an awful lot. I'll look somebody right in the eye and say, and how's that working out for you?
Yeah, how's that working out for you? It's not.
That's exactly. I said, well, I don't believe in God and this, that, and the other thing. My family fell apart and this, and how's that working out for you?
Yeah, that's a great line.
They're telling you a disaster that their life is, but they forget that it all started with losing God.
Yeah.
You know, that actually God is not lost. God's not the one that's lost in that equation. It's oneself. Yes.
And it seems to me, Father, as what we can do as committed followers of Christ is just live out our faith as a follower of Christ. And, even little things, blessing themselves when you go by a Catholic church for in honor of the Blessed Sacrament, saying prayers at a public restaurant, making the sign of the cross. I've seen miracles take place just with that signing of the cross. And I'll just give one real quick story where the lady who was very elderly, was at the restaurant with a friend of mine and across the table. And when he went to make the sign of the cross, the woman said, "Young man, why did you do that?" And I said, "What do you mean? What did I do that?" "I blessed myself." And the lady says, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, everything's a gift. Every day's a gift. No guarantee I'm going to be here tomorrow. So I thank God for all the blessings that I receive every day, especially when I eat." And she started weeping. He said, "Well, you okay?" She said, "Well, actually, I just lost my husband. He died. We were married 64 years." So she was in her 90s. And he said, "Well, my condolences, ma'am. I'm so sorry about your loss. But remember, you can offer up your prayers for the salvation of your husband's soul. So, every action is like a blank check. Give it all to Jesus." Then she starts weeping even more. And the waiter looks over and says, "What did you say to her?" And he's like, "I don't know. I don't get it." So make a long story short, the woman finally got her composure together and said to my friend, "Thank you for sharing that insight, because I really was depressed at the loss of my husband to a point where I was planning to commit suicide after this meal. But I'm not going to do that now because you've given me hope that I need to turn to God." And she said, "Thank you."
Oh,
But my point, Father, is this is not, I mean, these things happen. Why? Because we are Catholic. Don't hide your faith. I'm not saying flaunt it, okay? But don't hide it. If people ask you a question about the faith, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, give an answer. But you see, if you are living your faith, God will put you in situations like that on a daily basis. Somebody might be a homeless person. You say, God bless you. Or someone right now, when someone says, Happy Holidays. No, it's not Happy Holidays. It's Merry Christmas in the Christmas season, right? So I think that that's what we need to be doing. We've got to take a quick break. We're going to get back to some commentary by Archbishop Sheen regarding Jesus being lost in the temple and Our Lady's response. Stay with us, family. We're too blessed to be stressed. Yes, we're too anointed to be disappointed. And if hope was money, Father Murr and Terry Barber would be billionaires because our hope is in Jesus Christ.
Oh, you got that right.
Amen.
Oh, you got that right.
We'll be right back, folks.